Lord Vader is undoubtedly one of the ultimate powerhouses of whatever timeline he inhabits. He is a literal Terminator with a lightsaber, a singular goal, an unstoppable force of nature that the Jedi cannot just fight, they can barely even run and hide. Of all of the attempts made on Vader's life both in Legends and canon through massive weapons, monsters, and machines, Vader rises above them all, and in nearly every encounter with other Force wielders, all will fall by the blade of the Dark Chosen One. All except for two, his master Sidious and his apprentice, Galen Marek. What's up guys and fellow students of the Force, and welcome back to the archives. With Darth Vader being so powerful, it almost boggles the mind that Starkiller managed to defeat him not just once, but twice, with the second technically being the Starkiller clone. We've all known Galen to be one of the most powerful and capable wielders of the Force in all of the lore, but Vader himself is not inferior to his own apprentice's power. By all accounts, it initially doesn't make sense that Vader should lose a fight with Starkiller, and today we are going to be opening up a holocron and learn exactly why, and how Starkiller reached a point in his training where he was always defeating Lord Vader. What made Starkiller the trump card to an individual that seemingly was unstoppable against all others? We do not want to undermine or discount the strength of Darth Vader, and we believe the answer to this question is in Galen's own training. For the majority of Galen Marek's life, he lost duels with Vader whenever they sparred. Each time the two of them fought, Vader would push Galen to the limit, sometimes giving him brutal injuries out of nowhere, teaching him the lesson of pain. For Galen, every sparring session with Vader was a fight for survival. This was to hone Vader's apprentice into the deadliest assassin who was able to persevere through any opposition. Starkiller was of course Vader's ace in the hole for taking over the Empire and overthrowing his master, so he needed the apprentice to be able to push through pain, even life-threatening injuries if necessary, and so Vader ruthlessly beat him down every time that they fought. It is no small feat that Starkiller managed to defeat Vader as an adult, but once he did, he crossed a certain threshold of power and understanding that would ensure his victories in the future. Before analyzing Starkiller, we want to look at Vader's side of things. We are going to acknowledge that Vader is superior in several categories to Galen. Obviously in terms of saber skill and combat experience, Vader put together a deadly hybridized style consisting of Forms 5 and augmented with the footwork and the precision of Form 2, learning from one of his greatest teachers, Dooku. Makashi was the best form in saber-to-saber combat, and had the ability to efficiently defeat nearly any enemy if it was met with a skilled hand. The more methodical approach to combat also aided Vader, as he was not able to move as quickly as he had as Anakin, due to his cumbersome armor, but that was something that Vader had overcome entirely. He had become a patient machine of death. He also employed defensive sequences of Form 3, learning from Obi-Wan Kenobi in his defeat on Mustafar. This was to protect his new weak spot, which was his suit's control panel, located in the very center of his chest. Thrown in is the ability to quickly use bursts of force attacks and telekinesis. This shows he has mastered the technique of Form 6, learning to use the Force in tandem with lightsaber combat seamlessly. Vader has perfected killing Force sensitives, and he proved this with his copious amounts of battle experience and Jedi kills. There was no better teacher in the galaxy for molding someone to destroy Sidious than Vader. But Vader didn't teach Galen everything. He held back certain techniques, and when it came to the clone of Starkiller, the novel for The Force Unleashed 2 specifically says that Subject 1138 was conditioned to defeat any opponent except for Darth Vader. Clearly something went horribly wrong here. What did Vader not account for, and what did most people forget? We have to look at the inefficiency of Vader's own body. The Force Unleashed takes place somewhere around 2 to 1 BBY, in the 2-decade span from the ending of the Clone Wars to the start of the Galactic Civil War and Luke. Vader's body has been rapidly deteriorating. While being only a man in his 40s by now, his age has basically been accelerated by his injuries, to the point where physically, he's more closer to 70. In the years that would follow, he would begin to degrade even faster, and at this point, Vader was heavily relying on his prosthetics for just about everything. I do like to imagine that this is the reason he is slow when fighting Obi-Wan in A New Hope. He's still recovering from the damage and the brutal thrashing that he's taken from not only Starkiller, but also Galen Marek. A little bit of fun headcanon if you like. It is true Vader wields incredible power. He has masterful skill in combat, and a great wisdom of battle. But I want to make something clear. This is not Vader's prime. This is a galaxy bereft on any real force-based warriors. This is why Vader remains the most dangerous man in any room he walks in, besides Palpatine's throne. By contrast, Starkiller is younger, faster, and he had the ability to use more of his raw strength. Now hear us out on that for a second. This is not to say that he's more powerful than Vader is necessarily, but just that Vader is hindered from using as much power as he should be able to without damaging himself. Vader is attached to a breathing regulator which pumps oxygen into his lungs. To exert himself in a meaningful way requires more breath than his suit may be able to supply him. He does have a manual override switch on his chest plate that allows him to have more air if need be, the ability to test his physical body, basically an overdrive mode, but this can leave him gasping and severely weakened if used incorrectly and not at the right moment. And if he used it wrong against Starkiller, he could be pummeled to death. Vader would begin to snap wires if he unleashed his full power. He would break crossbeams and damage his systems in a ton of places due to an exertion, to the point where Vader has to actively hold back, show restraint for his own sake, unless his life is on the line. Starkiller doesn't have these problems, and so is able to use his vast amounts of power with wild abandon, a power which falls only just shy of being the same as Vader's current full strength. There are shockingly multiple sources of Vader being suggested as weak during around the time of A New Hope. The lore suggests that his fires of passion and hatred have been reduced. He is just an icy shell, more machine than he has ever been before, both figuratively and physically. He's just going through the motions of an empire without any real purpose. It was when Luke came into his life and into the fold that he experienced a pop in his power yet again, bringing him nearly back to full strength. But at this point, we estimated that A New Hope Vader is probably 60 to 70% what he will be in Empire Strikes Back, just a few years later. With this being only a year or two before that, we can place Vader at maybe around 75% of his prime, and Starkiller of course exceeds that percentage, even if it's not by a massive margin. This becomes especially dangerous with the clone of Galen. Starkiller is said to be even stronger. Subject 1138 was shown in the novel to be telenetically able to stalemate Vader, snapping off the Dark Lord's force choke and blasting him backwards into a wall. In the games, he was able to even ragdoll Vader. But when it comes to direct one-on-one comparisons, I would prefer to use the novel, delving more into the actual lore than the game mechanics. But let's move away from raw force strength. Why does Vader use at the lightsaber if his style was considered to be nearly perfect? Well, as we said earlier, Vader relies on being the strongest in any room, and that includes physically. Despite his suit hindering him, it does actually increase his physical might, at least outwardly. When facing Jedi in the past, he could usually overpower them with his strength and his deadly precision. But when it comes to Starkiller, and later Luke, he has a difficult time facing someone who can match or exceed his physical strength blow for blow. And this is where Vader gets in trouble. Starkiller's own physicality is superior to his master's, and that allows him to consistently deliver crushing blows with every swing. This is when Vader realized what he had done, what he had made. He had made a Sith Master Killer, and Vader was indeed the boy's master. Facing the strength of Starkiller, Vader did not have the options of agile movement. He's dealing with a more physically powerful opponent, a type of enemy that Vader has not faced for nearly a decade. Vader's defensive lightsaber posture carries him through the battle, but having to meet each of Starkiller's shattering blows costs him stamina and damages him each and every time. In a cruel twist of fate, this reminds me of when Anakin was fighting Dooku on Invisible Hand. When analyzing the subtext of the duel, they're remarkably similar. In his final fight with the Chosen One, Dooku was pressed into having to spend lavishly on his Force reserves just to keep up with Anakin. The Revenge of the Sith novel tells us that each one of Anakin's blows seemed to age Dooku by at least a decade. But now the tables have turned. Vader is experiencing the receiving end of what he did to Dooku. This is the essential answer to why Starkiller consistently beats Vader. It truthfully comes down to the fact that Vader is severely limited in the timeline at this point, and Galen Marek is in his definitive prime. In fact, Vader taught Galen to smash through his own limits every time that they fought. Several years ago in a livestream talking about the cancelled Force Unleashed 3, Sam Witwer and the writer of the Force Unleashed games revealed that in the third game, Darth Vader would actually win in his confrontation with Galen. And though apparently that game never even made it out of writing stages, I do think that this is something that we need to take into account. So what do you guys think? And I actually have a pretty big question. What do you think would happen if Vader from Empire Strikes Back fought either Galen Merrick or Starkiller. Do you think that this would make a change, and who would come out on top? As always, my friends, thanks so much for watching, and may the Force be with you.